Thank you for joining us for Turn the Page with Paige. I'm your host, Paige Halsey. One of St. Louis's most beloved destinations is Forest Park. And if you visit this time of year, you'll be treated to nature's beauty from flowers to wildlife. And it was the keen eye of a child that inspired a new children's book, Where Did the Turtles Go? By Katie Lerwick. Readers are invited to join a young girl and her dog on a seek and find mission as the seasons change. Today, we are treated with a visit from Katie Lerwick, the author from St. Louis, here in studio. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Your book is lovely. Where did you get this idea from?
Well, like many St. Louisans, Forest Park has been a daily part of my routine for years. I've worked out in the park, I've met friends in the park, I've gone to the museums, all the shows, but most importantly, I've walked with my dog Carl in the park. And it was on these walks with Carl that I would encounter occasionally preschool classes along with their grown-ups, and they would be engaged in some sort of activity, whether it was jumping on rocks or collecting leaves that had fallen from the trees. And they were so focused and excited about the little tiny things that they would find in the middle of the park, and it just brought a smile to my face. So fast forward to COVID, and the walks with Carl in the park became even more important, and I found myself on a routine of a path that followed a lot of the waterways in the park. I started to notice all of the turtles in different shapes and sizes, and I would take countless pictures and videos of these turtles, send them to my friends who would like them and be somewhat excited, but I could tell I was sort of
You became the turtle lady?
Becoming the turtle lady, pushing the limits of their patience a little bit. But in my mind, I went back to seeing those children in the park, and I thought, is there a way to tie this into a story? Because I had written stories in the past for my kids when they were that age. So I had time during COVID. I put pen to paper and came up with the story that follows a little girl on her journey to find turtles in Forest Park.
I love the story behind your story and the reminder that it gives us about the simple joy that children and even pets like Carl can notice, and sometimes they remind us that we need to pay attention to those small things and find that joy too. That is beautiful. Yeah. So let's learn more about the story within the story. What happens in your book? Where did the turtles go?
Well, it follows a little girl and her dog who looks very much like my dog Carl, and they go out the door, down the stairs, across the street, over the bridge and into Forest Park every day to find the turtles. And along the way, notice the flowers and the green grass and the leaves on the trees. And as the seasons change, the trees change, the temperature changes, and all of a sudden the turtles aren't there anymore. And it's the story of how the seasons change, and the turtles may disappear for a while, but they're not necessarily gone.
Yeah. How do you think that parents or caregivers, teachers too, can use your book as a tool to encourage that appreciation of nature?
Well, so the story is about turtles, but it's also about taking the time to notice things in nature, which I think is so important for children, to get outside in nature, notice how the seasons change and what happens in the park when the seasons change. And so I think that noticing small things, where the animals go, what animals we may see at different times in the year. So yes, it's about turtles and following them on throughout the year, but it's also about noticing other things in the park.
I remember the longest, coldest winter of my life. I was living in northern Wisconsin, and I swore winter would never end. And I remember the day that I called my mom as a grown woman to tell her the trees have budded. They're still alive.
Yeah.
And it was like the first moment that I remember noticing that distinct change in the seasons. And so I think it's a great reminder, as you alluded to earlier, both for children and for adults as well, to notice those things.
Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful illustrations, and I want to talk more about the illustrator and the style. Caroline Kraus, she has also some ties to you and to St. Louis.
Yeah, Caroline is the cousin of a very good friend of mine, and she introduced us. I have admired Caroline's work for a while. She's a digital artist, so what she does is she uses a tablet like yours as her canvas, and then a stylus as her paintbrush. And she used photographs that I had taken, dozens of the turtles in the park, and photographs of my daughter when she was 4. And she referenced those and created the illustrations. And I just love the serene, dreamlike quality.
I do too. Now, your daughter now a little older than 4. Maybe she
Slightly.
doesn't sit on your lap anymore to read stories like this, but
Yeah.
what did your children think when they saw you publish this book after so many years ago you had written stories for them?
They were very excited.
Really good.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that
Yeah,
support.
yeah.
What have you heard feedback from other young readers or other parents, especially other Forest Park lovers?
Well, I've heard from a librarian at the school where my kids went to elementary school, and he loved it. He was very excited by it. Some other preschool educators who thought it could be used in multiple ways to help preschoolers identify those natural things in the park.
Yeah, and what a great representation as well of our beloved Forest Park.
Yes.
Katie, before we let you go, I would love to hear your recommendation for another children's book. Maybe one from your childhood or one that you read your children or something that you've noticed on store shelves recently.
Well, I think the one that comes to mind when I'm thinking of this book is Make Way for Ducklings by Robert McCloskey. It's an older book, like
Yes.
early 1940s, but it's about animals in an urban park and their search for a home, and it's a timeless story.
I always appreciate when authors bring up those reminders of classics from the days
Yes.
gone by that still can be so cherished.
Yes.
So great recommendation.
Thanks.
And a great book that you've created to share with children as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So
Thank
great to
you.
meet you. And thank you for spending part of your day with us here on Turn the Page with Paige. We hope to see you again soon.